Kryptonite.
Abraham Lincoln was elected as president in 1860, Southerners thought that the government was becoming too strong. They did not think the government had the right to tell them how they should live. Southerners felt if they stayed in the United States, the North would control them. Some Southern states decided they had no choice. They decided to secede or leave the United States. South Carolina was the first to leave the Union and form a new nation called the Confederate States of America. 4 months later, 6 other states seceded. They were Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, and Louisiana. Later, Virginia, Arkansas, North Carolina, and Tennessee joined them. The people of these states elected Jefferson Davis as the president of the Confederacy. The northern states were called the Union. President Lincoln said he would fight to keep the southern states as part of the United States. There were Union forts on Confederate land. The Confederates wanted Union soldiers to leave these forts. In Charleston, South Carolina, there was a Union fort called Fort Sumter. The Union soldiers refused to leave this fort, so the Confederates fired cannons at the fort on April 12, 1861. This was the beginning of the Civil War. The Emancipation Proclamation was a document signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1, 1863, freeing the slaves then held in the states in rebellion to the United States. The signing of the Emancipation Proclamation did not free a great many slaves in the practical sense, as it couldn't be enforced in areas beyond the control of Union troops. However, it signaled an important clarification of the federal government's policy towards slaves, which had been evolving since the outbreak of the Civil War. The nullification crisis arose in the early 1830s when the leaders of South Carolina advanced the idea that a state did not have to follow a federal law and could, in effect, nullify the law. The idea that states' rights superseded federal law was promoted by John C. Calhoun, one of the most experienced and powerful politicians in the country, and was, to some extent, a precursor to the secession crisis that would trigger the Civil War 30 years later. The plan was set forth. The giants Calhoun, Webster, and Clay had spoken. Still, the Congress debated the contentious issues well into the summer. Each time Clay's compromise was set forth for a good vote, it did not receive a majority. Henry himself had to leave in sickness before his dispute could be resolved. In his place, Stephen Douglas worked tirelessly to end the fight. On July 9th, President Zachary Taylor died of food poisoning. His successor, Millard Fillmore, was much more interested in the compromise. The environment for a deal was set. By September, Clay's compromise became law. California was admitted to the Union as the 16th free state. In exchange, the South was guaranteed that no federal restrictions on slavery would be placed on Utah or New Mexico. Texas lost its boundary claims in New Mexico, but the Congress compensated Texas with $10 million. Slavery was maintained in the nation's capital, but the slave trade was prohibited. Finally, and most controversially, a fugitive state law was passed, requiring Northerners to return runaway slaves to their owners under penalty of the law. Sherman's march to the sea was set the South ablaze. The sea was the goal, the end result for the Union leader. General Sherman was a rogue, if only for a few months. The general of the Union Army, stationed in the heart of the Confederacy, was on a rampage. The orders did not come from the president, nor did they come from the brass of the Union leaders. This was an independent decision and action by the beleaguered. yet admired General Sherman. General Sherman believed that he and he alone could bring the Civil War to an end if only he could decimate the rebel by causing, striking out, and burning the Confederacy. This was what the march was all about, and regardless of the countercalls and bantering that General Sherman received, the end result was correct. The Battle of Fort Sumter was fought April 12th through April 14th, 1861, and was the opening engagement of the American Civil War. At 4:30 a.m. on April 12th, a single multi-round burst open Fort Sumter, signaling the other harbor forts to open fire. In July of 1863, the Union Army and the Confederacy Army concentrated together at Gettysburg and fought the Battle of Gettysburg. Of more than 2,000 land engagements of the Civil War, Gettysburg ranked supreme. Although the Battle of Gettysburg did not end the war, it is a great battle of the war, marking the point when the ultimate victory of the North over the South became clear to both sides. Here at Gettysburg on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 1863, more men fought and died than in any other battle in American history. The Battle of Atlanta was fought on July 22nd, 1864, just southeast of Atlanta, Georgia. Union forces commanded by William T. Sherman wanted to neutralize the important rail and supply hub, defeated Confederate forces defending the city under John B. Hood. After ordering the evacuation of the city, Sherman burned most of the buildings in the city, military or not. After taking the city, Sherman headed south toward Savannah, beginning his Sherman's march to the sea. The Battle of Antietam, aka Battle of Sharpsburg, resulted not only in the bloodiest day of American Civil War, but the bloodiest single day in all of American history. Fought primarily on September 17, 1862, between the town of Sharpsburg, Maryland, and the Antietam Creek, it ended General Robert E. Lee's first invasion of the northern state. The Union victory in the Civil War in 1865 may have given some 4 million slaves their freedom. But the process of rebuilding the South during the Reconstruction period, 1865 through 1877, introduced a new set of significant challenges. Under the administration of President Andrew Johnson in 1865 and 1866, new Southern states legislators passed restrictive black codes to control the labor and behavior of former slaves and other African Americans. Outrage in the North over these codes eroded. Support for the approach known as presidential reconstruction led to the triumph of a more radical wing of the Republican Party. During radical reconstruction, which began in 1867, newly enfranchised blacks gained a voice in government for the first time in American history, winning the election to Southern state legislators and even the U.S. Congress. In less than a decade, however, reactionary forces included the Ku Klux Klan would reverse the changes brought by radical reconstruction in a violent backlash that restored white supremacy in the South. Also, the Freedmen's Bureau was created and President Lincoln was assassinated while enjoying a night at the theater.
Kryptonite.